Hi, Barry Eaton here. Welcome to Radio Out There and our cosmic forecast for 2024 and my guest, Barbara DeLong. Barbara, hi, and good to talk to you here. We haven't spoken for a while.
No, we haven't. We haven't.
And,
Is
well, you're in the
there?
US, I'm in Australia. We've both been on each other's podcasts. We've spoken several times before. And you have now come up with a wonderful cosmic forecast once again. And it's getting a lot of attention all around the world. So here we are at the end of 2023. How did your forecast go for this year?
Actually, it was pretty accurate. And this year, I'm doing something different with the forecast. I I am doing one that encompasses the entire year at the beginning. But
Mm,
every month, I'm going to be doing a forecast for that month as well.
right.
So if anyone's interested in signing up for that and getting on the mailing list, all they have to do is go to barbaradelong.com and sign up for the email, and they will get a
I
notice
get it.
when
Yeah, it's
that
nice and easy.
forecast comes
Nice
out.
and easy. So you as an author, a podcaster, spiritual minister, the forecasters who come from the other side, how do you get your forecast?
I just sit down and I wait for something to come.
Hmm.
And I know that sounds silly, but I take my intellect, my mental acuity out of it
Right.
and just let things flow. And they do. And every now and then, if there's an area I'm really interested in, I'll just basically say, well, how about global warming or whatever?
Mm.
And material comes through. It's very much like you have to ask in order to get.
Yeah. So do you feel like you're channeling or what?
I would call it channeling.
Mm.
Uh, that's apparently now an antiquated term, but but it,
But I'm
you
trying to
know,
help people understand where it might be coming from. I mean, as a spiritualist myself, I would understand getting a download from spirit, which I get all the time, all
yeah,
manner of things. So I presume, correct me if I'm wrong, that this is something similar to the way you work.
absolutely. It
Right.
it just it just comes through me. I clear my mind as best I can,
Yeah.
and just say, okay, let's go. And I get download is a good word. It takes us a little bit more into the 21st century.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, that's exactly it. It comes from the other side. It comes from spirit.
From spirit. That's fair enough. All right. So let's have a look at 2024. Everybody's sick to death of 2023. So we are looking forward to changes. And you are saying that it's now a time of awakening enlightenment in many different levels. So let's talk about that.
It appears that humanity as a whole has become very complacent,
Mm.
and they've forgotten that they're on a spiritual journey. They've forgotten they are spiritual energies for a great many of the people out there, and because of that, they have kind of dulled themselves down to not being open to what spirit is trying to tell them.
Mm.
And because of that, I use a term, or have used a term, if you slumber, they will plunder. And we've been slumbering. And because of that, because we haven't been really focused on our journeys, the those that don't care, those that don't have spiritual focus this lifetime, have sort of taken control. And because of that, the peace and tranquility that humanity as a whole, going way, way back thousands of years, had um, has been destroyed.
Yeah.
So that now we are looking at a society or societies who are power hungry and struggling and not really looking out for each other. They're more or less looking at primarily for themselves and what they can accumulate, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, that's not saying everybody, but it is saying that even those on a spiritual pathway sort of don't understand that we are also integrated into a physical reality of which spirit is a great part of. And because they're just thinking about spiritual things, they aren't applying that whole concept to their physical reality as well. And that's where the slumbering has come in.
Yeah, that's right. Also, because we're slumbering, authoritarianism has taken over so much. And you are saying now it's a time to move on from authoritarianism and new forms of government on the way.
Yes, I believe that's going to happen in all countries.
Hmm.
I think one of the U.S. for sure. I do feel that our government is going to crumble and a different kind of government is going to be established over the next decade. One of the bigger things that I saw was that I do believe that when King Charles the second or third, I can't remember what
Third,
number he is,
third.
third, that when he passes, and I don't see his passing, but when he does pass, the monarchy will be done. That the government will say no more, keep your title and your personal property, but we don't need a monarchy anymore.
Yeah, that'll be
And
interesting because there's a Republican movement here in Australia, and they are looking to boost their activity, shall I say, over the next year or two. So that will give them heart. But seeing what's happening in other republics around the world, is republicanism the best way, or a republic, shall I say, as opposed to republicanism, which is a party in the US? But is the republic the only way in democracy? That's what we have to
I,
wonder, I should say.
well, I don't believe it is the only way. But
Mm,
if you look at countries like Russia, Russia has always been used to having a czar,
yeah,
basically, or a dictator. And when the world tried to sort of bring them into the 21st century, there was a great deal of resistance, and basically people who were power hungry are the ones that became those that were in charge.
yeah,
So that there are certain areas in the world that just can't deal with the equality that a republic or a real republic actually gives to the people. So that it isn't a matter even of being ready or not. It's being a matter of, do you want this or not? And
yeah.
and I'm not sure that a republic is something that can be forced upon every society. It doesn't work.
Doesn't work. No, no. Now, you're talking about a wonderful expression about rats leaving a sinking ship. And you say that it's going to be a lot of retirements, shall we say, to avoid prosecution. Are we talking about the present US government here? Are we talking about with Hunter Biden back in the news at the moment?
Oh
Are we
God.
talking about the president? Or don't you wish to name names?
Well, I don't mind naming names because I'm just blown away by that. My grandfather was in public, in he was in politics, and he was a very brilliant man. And when I think of what we have going on here in this country, I'm not unfamiliar with what dementia looks like,
Hmm.
and I'm not the only one. And to have a president who is so sadly being affected by this is horrible, and nobody seems to care. Um, the term we have people in our Congress and the Senate that have to literally be helped to their seats. And
Yeah.
I mean, they're in their 80s and 90s. Now, I'm coming into my 80s, and I think my brain is still pretty sharp. But these people are passing laws,
Hmm.
and that's not right.
No, no, you're
It
right.
it should. I don't believe that our forefathers planned on anything like that. They figured, you'd serve your term and you'd go back to your farm,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
And that's not a bad way to go, but because I do believe that some sort of shift in how we pick our politicians, and I don't even know if politician is the right word, pick those groups of people that for a time will have to administer laws and make laws is probably a better way to go.
Hmm.
I think it should be a committee. I don't think it should be the way it is
The
now.
way it is now. No. as huge authoritarian control in many different levels, isn't it? You're talking about other things in the US. You're saying that you're forecasting, I should say, that riots will break out in several cities. I mean, Washington, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and many, many more. And there's going to be big changes. So you're forecasting that for 2024, are you? Lots of riots.
Um, yeah, and it's not the only place. We're going to see them in Germany. We're going to see them in France. We're going to see them in a lot of the European countries as well. We've come to a time when the general public in all areas is fed up with the power struggles that have been going on within the political system, and they're going to rebel. A while back, I was forecasting riots, and it just people kept saying, well, which party is rioting? And it's the whole country that's rioting. It's the whole country saying enough. It has nothing to do with political parties, because political parties no longer even represent the group that they started out representing. And I do believe you're going to see that, especially in Germany and probably Poland. You're going to see them in a lot of the European countries as well. The people are getting fed up with being manipulated and becoming cannon fodder. So that those who are very, very smart and intelligent and can foresee this are indeed beginning to retire, going back into public life, going back into public practice, and hopefully not being caught up in the net that is going to slowly be cast over all of those who have misused their power.
Yeah. It's very interesting you say all of this, because I'm an astrologer as well as many other things. And well, I talked about this before on my program, but this year we have a very major change of planetary situations, where the planet Pluto, which is all about transformation, goes from Capricorn, which is about authoritarianism, governments, big business, control, all these things. It goes into Aquarius, which is more about people and about technical development, but also about rebellion. And the last time it went into Aquarius was, wait for it, back when the French Revolution broke out. What happened? The monarchy was taken up to the scaffold, had their heads taken off, and a huge change all over the place. And that started massive, absolutely massive changes as far as Europe was concerned. So
Yeah.
history, I don't know whether you studied history or not, I have for many, many years.
Oh,
History moves in cycles. We don't learn from the past, we keep making the same mistakes. Well, we haven't learned, and here we are. So what you're saying, you're getting from spirit, I'm getting it from astrology, and I'm not the only one. All the other astrologers are saying the same thing, that we are in for some major, major changes. And the little riots that are breaking out now are just the forerunner of very big changes. So how does that grab you?
Well, it's interesting because, excuse me, I took a look at those people that are interpreting Nostradamus's quatrains, and they have foretold for this particular time frame, especially in the U.S., that not only would there be riots, but there would be executions by, wait for it, guillotine.
Oh, what? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The heads will roll. Wow, that's amazing. Where's Madame Lafarge come in? Well, but not only that, you also forecast that there's going to be changes of borders in the US, Canada, Mexico, and various other places. Now, that also happened because the map of Europe changed after the French Revolution, all around those revolutionary times. And it also brought in the Industrial Revolution and many other things. So people started to wake up. So once again, tell us a bit more about the border changes that you are feeling or seeing.
Well, the biggest one that I see is that between Canada and the U.S. and the U.S. and Mexico, there's going to be a dead zone.
A
In other
dead
words,
zone.
a zone that no one goes over. It doesn't belong to either, and it's wide enough so that it can be patrolled, and anybody who's trying to cross will be sent back or killed.
Ooh.
And I think we are in a time frame, especially with our southern border, that has to be established. I don't know how else you're going to stop the flow. So that those two are big. I do believe that China is going to take over Taiwan. Um,
And you said
it
that's
will.
also going to be the start of a lot more. China, when they do that, will then move on to other horizons.
Oh yeah, I mean, once they succeed with that and nobody stops them, they'll start looking around and seeing where else they can stretch,
Yeah, yeah.
and they will. I think that internally, I think borders in especially in Europe are going to change. I feel that there are a lot of places that are going to be subdivided and subdivided, and I think Russia is one of them. I
Well, I
think.
mean, Russia and Ukraine is an obvious one to look at, isn't it?
Oh
Because
yeah.
if that war, or invasion, shall we say, if that happens to come to some kind of resolution next year, then there will be a lot of border changes just in
Yeah,
that area, let alone any other
yeah.
part of Europe,
I don't believe there's going to be a resolution.
don't you?
I do know. I think eventually some idiot is going to hit the atomic energy place, and then we'll be in big trouble.
Do you? Yeah, I have to put my thought in here that I don't believe that the cosmic powers, shall we say, will allow atomic war on this planet. I think there'll be some intervention. We've already seen in the past where UFOs have gone over places, and this powered, shall we say, the nuclear missiles, and they intervened, shall we say. And I
Well,
believe that will happen again.
I don't think it's going to be a bomb. I think it's going to be exploded by accident.
Oh, okay, that's a thought.
I don't think
How can you
that
explode an atomic bomb accidentally?
well, you hit a nuclear power plant and you drain the water off, and um, you have that energy that just explodes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Look at look
I was working in
look at
Vienna at the time of Chernobyl, and we were warned about all sorts of things at that time. And there was a lot of concern, and that was back in the 80s. So
well well
who
look
knows
at
what would happen now
Fukushima.
with
That wasn't a
Fukushima?
bomb,
Mm,
but the radiation is all over.
yeah, yeah,
You know, that might call the United Nations to step in, which I don't believe they have any power anymore, but you know, it may be so shocking
mm,
that everything will be, shut down. But I do believe there will be a nuclear explosion, but I don't think it'll be someone sending a bomb against somebody else.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so. Excuse me for one moment. I have to do this because otherwise, we're going to have an interference here. Um, They wanted to update something on my computer right now. And I said, no, no, go away. I shouldn't forecast that one. All right. So you're also saying that there is going to be a disregard for the law in the US, and I presume in other countries as well. Now, that was part of the French Revolution. The law didn't matter. The public, the mass reaction, that became the mob law. Are you saying that will happen again in your thoughts?
Oh, well, I think at first it will, because when you start and look at what they're doing, they're defunding the police. They're doing all sorts of things that
Mm,
people are being arrested and let go. Yeah, this this is this is a lawless country now. It really is. And you look at the politicians who are getting away with doing all sorts of things, millions and millions of dollars taken, and for personal gain,
mm.
and nothing's being done. So I think at some point, whoever is in power is going to have to establish martial law,
Oh, that's a
because
big call.
we can't bring our army back. because the army theoretically can't function within the country.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to get the martial law instituted so that they can try to pull it together. That won't work, by the way, but they will institute it for a while.
Well, we're having a huge problem here right now with youth crime, gangs of kids, teenagers, young ones, crime, robbery, break-ins, assaults, so many different things. It's gone absolutely rampant. So they shouldn't care less because the courts just process them out. They come to Australia and do it again. And that's happening day in, day out in certain parts of our country. But it's increasing. So that disregard for the law is not only through corrupt politicians, it's right down to the kids. So where do we stop? Where do we start?
Well, when they started with the riots back 3 or 4 years ago, my theory was give the police rubber bullets, let them shoot them, not kill them, but hurt them, and it would discourage anything. I think it's gotten to the point now where they'll just get guns and use real bullets, and that won't work either. We have the same thing here. We have the smash and grab. We have people pulling people out of cars at stoplights and stealing their cars. It's frightening.
Yeah.
And the answer is not to get a gun yourself, because with my luck they take the gun and shoot me. So it's kind of like, wait a minute, I have a gun here. I don't know how to use it, but if you'll show me where the trigger. Yeah. No, if you show me where the thing that stops it so that I can release it so I can use it against you. That's not the way to end it. And I don't know, because at this point in time, our institutions aren't big enough to arrest all of these people and have them serve a year or two doing community service or whatever. There's just no way to stop it there. It's got to be a larger solution. And here in this country, in Georgia, we had stones called the Georgia Stones. And they basically had, among other things, just what we would need to have a good balanced society. And one of them was, we needed to depopulate the world by great numbers. And when you look at what's happening with wars and stuff like that, and pandemics, the population is going down, but not fast enough.
Not fast enough. But that's what Bill Gates is saying. We have to get rid of millions and millions of billions of people. So, there are movements out there to depopulate the world, and we can see where authoritarianism and control is there. So that, according to your forecast and according to astrology, that will start to change as well. So we have to look in different directions. Now, with guns, fortunately, we have very strong gun laws here in Australia, very, very strong gun laws. We had a big revamp of that many, many years ago. And I wonder, has your forecast there thought about gun control in the US?
Well, I live in the South now. And if you tried to take somebody's gun, you would probably lose your life.
They'd shoot you.
Yeah. No, it's to a point where if you took the guns away from people that have guns, the criminals would still have their guns.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So unless you do away with gun manufacture and everything, and you just destroy all the guns, but there will always be illegal everything. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can't do anything with it there.
Yeah, well, we did it here, but we've only got 25 million people. You've got about 330 million, so it's a bit harder for you guys. Let's move on to some of the other things in the world right now. You talked about King Charles before, but also in that same part of the forecast, you talked about the Pope also going through great challenges, and the papacy will be reorganized. Any more details on that one?
Well, I know that the Pope or the papacy is trying to consolidate Judaism, Christianity, and one other religion. And I think in Dubai they have a center for the establishment of that church that is the combination. Um, the papacy, um, I for a short time was Catholic, and when I realized how much money they had tied up in all of their, you know, real
Look,
estate and jewels and gold and
and the
everything.
art treasures in the Vatican and the library, way down in the depths.
Yeah,
Massive.
and so why aren't they trying to take care of their constituency?
Exactly. I've said that
Why
for
are
years.
why are the Catholics, looking at, they take three different rounds of offerings at church, and then they give the poor their share. But if they're that compassionate, why aren't they taking care of these people who are starving in India and in this country and in every
Every
country?
country. Yep, for sure. For sure.
So
Well,
yeah, no,
so
but
you
the
feel
papacy,
you believe there's changes on the way. Is that your forecast that the church, particularly the Catholic Church, will have to reform, change, whatever?
well, the papacy helped the Nazis escape from Germany
Oh,
after
yeah.
the war.
Terrible
I
corruption.
I mean, and I think it's just as bad now. It's just not as publicized as it had been.
Yeah, really frightening there. Um, all right, let's move on to a couple of other things here. Um, the Moon and Mars landings. Your forecast there is that we will see landings on both the Moon and Mars next year, and a few surprises in store on the Moon.
Big ones. Um, they're going to find that the moon has already been colonized. As a matter of fact, it was colonized so long ago that whatever structures are there now are just reminiscent. It's, you're talking,
Archaeology.
um, yeah. And as far as Mars goes, I think that there are underground tunnels and there are underground chambers that are already there.
Hmm,
And
I agree.
it that the element of having extraterrestrials um, around is something. I believe that the extraterrestrials were quite possibly here before humanity was here. So that in many ways we are really the aliens. We aren't the ones defending our planet because there's nothing to defend from.
Hmm.
But as far as the moon goes, the moon is hollow. They found a number of times when they dropped things on it, it echoed. So
Yeah. There's a
so
wonderful
so
book out on that I had many years ago. The Moon is Hollow. Yeah.
it is.
Hmm.
And there are chambers inside it that have been used forever. And the dark side of the moon already has space stations on it. So when we talk about our space fleet, which I think is a joke because there already is a secret space police that's been out there forever. Well,
Hmm.
not ever, but a very long time. And so we're replicating something that's already there, and we're not giving them all of the information. And that's another case of slumbering and plundering because we would be so far ahead if we had access to what is really being hidden from us.
Hmm. Yeah. Speaking of the alien civilizations coming here before we did, I had a download I connected quite a few years ago, and one of my downloads said the Earth was colonized from other worlds, much the same as the New World was colonized from the Old World back in about the 14th and 15th centuries. So it was just a reflection of that. So,
I would agree with that. It
mm,
makes sense. But I don't think they came in spaceships. I think they were interdimensional.
yeah, I totally agree. I think it explains also all sorts of things like crop circles and many other things. Yeah, very much so. Um, so you say that also a new colony will start on the moon as part of the expansion this year. That's your forecast.
That's what I believe is going to happen. I know that a number of years ago, some of the astronauts were up there got the message to not come back, and we didn't go back for a very, very long time. but we're going back now. So I don't think we've been given an invitation. So this could also result in, some sort of tragedy concerning some of our space people.
Mm. You said that the evidence of the historical sites on the moon will be gathered but held from the public. But a whistleblower will spill the beans.
Yep. Thank goodness for the whistleblowers.
Whistles all around. Couldn't agree more. Um, a few other points here. Those in power won't be able to keep us all in the dark as our revolts and revolutions proceed. Keeping us in the dark. Did you get any more details on how that might play out?
Well, first, of course, whistleblowers, but whistleblowers aren't paid. They don't pay attention to them. I think something that might happen in part is that our president may babble something out that is a secret that shouldn't be shared, and I think that's he has been privy to a lot of the secret information over time, whether as vice president or as president, and he
Mm.
had to get briefings, and he's deteriorated to the point where he will say something that possibly he doesn't realize is something that shouldn't be said, and that'll crack open a
That'll
lot of
crack
stuff.
open. Well, I mean, he can't find his way off the stage half the time at the moment, so that would not be surprising to most people. I mean, at his age, I'm about his age. I should not think of anything worse than trying to run a government, let alone the most powerful government in the world. I mean, we have to go back to younger people on
Oh yeah,
politics.
but let's be clear, he's not running the government. Obama is running the government. Um, Political parties are running it. He is being controlled.
Yeah.
At one point, I saw that there was a port that stuck out from his sleeve, so that he's being treated with some medication of some sort, hopefully to give him mental acuity, but you just don't know. You
It's
look
not
at the way
working.
he walks, you look at the way he stumbles
Yeah,
around,
I
you
know.
look at the way he has no attention span, and then he rambles.
It's very, very sad. Very sad.
Now, Ronald Reagan had dementia, Alzheimer's, and he was controlled the last 6 months to a year of his presidency.
Mm.
Um, but Biden is way worse than Reagan ever
Much,
got.
much. Totally agree. Totally agree. Um, They're saying that the next decade, your forecast, the next decade will see the restructuring of society. There'll be a lot of chaos, but total restructure. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, first of all, there will be riots. There will be
Mm.
um, and then because the police force is no longer there, they're going to have to establish some form of um, control. And whether I don't think it's going to be a military police. I think that they are going to elect people who will um, institute guidelines for behavior and whatever. And they're going to
Oh,
have to rewrite just about everything.
yeah.
And 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 which I didn't put in the forecast. And the first 2 or 3 times they try this, it will fail because
Mm.
people will try to control it. So it's going to take a while, but there will be a committee more than a government.
Yeah, you said that before. Very, very interesting. But you also say that it's up to individuals and not politicians to build a better world. So that's a very good point. So you feel confident about that forecast.
Oh yeah, and I believe that we will come to a time where everybody serves a period of time in some form or another within the governing body of our society, whether it's local or national, and that after you've served your short term, I pretty sure I put in term limits, that there would be term limits so that once your term was over, it was over. You no longer had the impact or the power or the influence. You had to go back to whatever your day job was and earn your living again like everybody else. We're not going to be hinting, we're not going to be passing out money. And one of the first things that is going to crumble, I think, is the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, very interesting. So let's now turn to something that's in the news all the time, the weather. Now, you are saying the Ring of Fire is going to be reactivated, and that bears up also in astrology, because we have the planet Uranus in Taurus, which is about eruptions and sudden changes in the Earth. So what you're saying there also is reflected in astrology. But the Ring of Fire will be reactivated next year with volcanoes, long extinct, coming to life again, earthquakes, tsunamis, all sorts of, and that will have a very big effect, as it would.
Oh, yeah. Well, just recently, 2 days ago, we had what they are calling is a cluster tornado event, and 13 tornadoes touched down within about 5 miles of me.
That's incredible.
And it was incredible devastation that happened. Our weather system is changing, and the activation of and it's the underwater volcanoes that are going to be really fascinating, because they will create tsunamis that are unexpected.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you put the HARP organization that can control weather. They're playing around with whether the tsunami that hit Haiti a number of years ago was HARP. It was not a natural event. It was something that was triggered by HARP.
Yeah.
So then you have another group of people that can threaten the entire country. And it's got to stop.
Now, in fact, the government has the ability to control the weather to a great extent. Is that only HARP? Because that's been around for quite some time, HARP, HAARP, is spelled, by the way, for the viewers and listeners who want to look it up. That's been around for quite some time. But are there other measures at the moment that the government is controlling all our weather?
There are government agencies that are, but it's on top of that, you've got the natural progression, you've got the pole shifting, you've got a lot of natural things that are happening that are affecting the weather as well. So that, I mean, our farmers don't know when to plant and when not. They don't know when to harvest and when not. And then on top of that, you have the government telling them what they have to spray on all of their vegetables and everything, so that they poison the population.
So this is all in your forecast information from the other side. So you're not making this up, just to make sure people understand that you are not on a one-woman crusade. You are passing on information from the other side.
Yeah, there have been a couple of years that I did not do the predictions because they were just so dire. And I thought it would get better, and it's gotten worse. So I'm back to doing the yearly overview, and then I'm back to doing the monthly predictions as well.
Part of what you're talking about was there'll be shortages, food shortages. That's another forecast that will be quite dire for many people.
Well, there already are food shortages, and it isn't so much that it's a shortage. Well, it's a shortage because you can't afford to buy the food. So, everybody's looking for alternatives for a lot of things. And one of our biggest alternatives for our protein are eggs, and eggs are out of sight. I mean, I even suggested, I live in a condominium and we have some open space. I even suggested we put up a chicken coop. Did not go over well.
I was about to say, how did that go over?
Not well at all.
Oh, well, there you go. But maybe some of these things will happen because there will be more group activities as Pluto goes further and further into the sign of Aquarius. And it's the start next year. It's not all going to happen in 5 minutes, but some of these things will roll out over about the next 15 years, 20 years or so. So we're in for
Yeah.
times of very big changes astrologically. Now you're talking, of course, forecast, which comes from the heavens, comes from the other side, wherever, other dimensions. But just to wrap up, one of the things you say is we do need to take back our personal power. Now,
Hmm.
that is a very interesting one. Let's go out on that note. Tell us
Well,
more.
a lot of people feel they don't have control over what's happening in their lives,
Hmm.
and they actually do. They actually do. They don't, doesn't mean they take a gun and go out and shoot somebody up,
No, no, no.
but it does mean that they take control of their life again. And if something isn't working for them, they change it. They don't attack it. They just change it.
Yeah.
If your job isn't what you want, if it's not bringing you what you need, then change your job. If your relationship isn't what you want or need, then you change yourself and attract a different kind of situation to you. We have great control. We create our reality by our perception of it.
Hmm.
And rather than sitting back and saying, oh, everything's going to hell in a handbasket, start changing your part. And if everybody changes their own part, reality does change too.
Well, that's very true. I mean, if we take back our own personal power and stop expecting the government to do everything for us, socialism, all that left-wing stuff, will never ever be able to help us take back personal power. We're giving our power away rather than taking it back. So there has to be changes. So, well, there, Barbara, I think you've certainly given everybody around the world who listens and watches and reads your wonderful forecast as well, go onto your website, um, a lot to think about for Christmas, the new year. And we're about to start a period of Mercury retrograde right now. So
Oh,
ending off, that is, but it is time to internalize, to think about what you want. Don't make any major decisions. Don't sign any contracts. Expect a few glitches here and there, especially community. I mean, my printer failed yesterday at the start of Mercury retrograde. So thank you very much. Uh, but
right.
there we are. So, Barbara, thank you so much for coming on the program. And thank you for sharing your wonderful knowledge and contact from the other side. And we'll see how 2024 works out for all of us. And I hope everything works out extremely well for you too.
Oh, as you as well. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.